All right, today we are talking about banjo tuning, using capos, understanding musical keys, all that good stuff. I get a lot of questions around that. I think there's some confusion. It's not too difficult, but it's not very intuitive if no one's ever explained it to you. So we are getting into it today. So I want to start by explaining how and when to tune your banjo up or down from sort of the standard open G tuning. So I'm in open G tuning right now, which is going to be G, D, G, B, D. And that's all good. I can play tons of songs here. I can play Cripple Creek. I can sing lots of songs. Will this circle be unbroken? And that just fits my voice just fine. What happens if I want to play Lazy John, for example? Let's look at that chorus. Lazy John, Lazy John. That's way too high for me. I can sort of hit it. It's not very comfortable. So what do you do? Can I just not play Lazy John or can't sing with it? Nope, absolutely not. There's always an answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune every string on my banjo down one full step. So my G is going to become an F. My D is going to become a C. My G is going to become an F. My B is going to become an A. And my D is going to become a C. Okay, so now I can snap my fingers. Everything's tuned down one full step. So let's try that chorus from Lazy John again. Lazy John, why don't you get your day's work all done? Much easier for me to sing, and the song is still recognizable. So I'm going to explain why this works, why our brains are so cool when we listen to music. It's just a neat thing. So our brains are much better at sort of recognizing the distance between notes, the relation of notes to each other, than they are the actual notes themselves. Like, so for example, if I just hear that note, I'm probably not going to be able to tell you what it is. I guess I could guess, but I'm probably not going to be right without some serious ear training. However, if the distance between all the notes remains the same, by changing the tuning of each string by the same amount, then your brain's still going to recognize the song even though the notes are totally different. So what that means is we can tune our banjo up or down and it's still going to work. And the song's going to sound really close to the original. Most of the time, no one's even going to recognize that you changed the tuning. This is one of the reasons to tune up or down based on your voice. So I think it's helpful to gauge the sort of, rate on a scale of 1 to 5, how difficult what you're singing is. If it feels really hard, if you're putting a lot of effort into it, chances are you could benefit by going up or down in your tuning. Look for the sort of key that's going to make it the easiest. And when I say key, I'm talking about the scale we use when forming the song. So old-time banjo tunes typically fall in the scales of G, A, C, and D. That's just kind of the standard keys we tend to use. There are others, but those are the really common ones. As said, right now I'm tuned down a full step. I'm actually playing in the key of F, but your brain doesn't really know that. And I actually play the song exactly the same. Nothing changes in the way I play the song. It's just our banjo tuning has changed. That makes it really convenient. If I do want to play a song in the key of F, I can just tune down one step and play as if I was in the key of G. I don't have to learn any new chord shapes or anything like that. Okay, so you can generally go down about a step and a half. So your G becomes like an E. Beyond that, your strings get pretty loose. It starts to sound maybe a little wonky. It's not the greatest. And you can experiment though, find what's good for you. Some people tune down further than that and it sounds just fine. It's a matter of personal taste. As far as going up, you can tune your strings up about one full step so your G becomes an A before you start to risk breaking strings. No one likes snapping strings. Beyond that, it's a good idea to use a capo. So I'm back in open G here. Say I want to play a song in the key of A. All I need to do is put my capo on the 2nd fret. Now I will say, I tend to, even though I said you could tune up about one full step, I tend to really only tune up like half a step if I want to play in G sharp. I'll tune up. Otherwise, I generally use a capo. Actually, let's look at the 4th string. So say we're going to play, or the 4th fret. So let's say we want to play in B. So I can just clamp this on at the 4th string. And if I'm going to not play my 5th string, but if I play the first 4 strings, now I'm playing a B chord, although we can still continue to think of it as a G chord because we play it as a G chord. Now our 5th string, something's got to happen here. 5th string capo is great for this. I use railroad spikes. I think those are really useful. I've talked about them in plenty of other videos. Check those out or just go online, buy a 5th string capo. They're pretty cheap, very useful. Now, after I use a capo, I am going to have to just get my tuning back into order. capoing up and using a railroad spike will generally pull the strings just slightly out of tune. So you just want to make those little adjustments so you're sounding good. And now, say we want to play Cripple Creek. Look at that. It's still recognizable, even though we're playing totally different notes than we were just in our standard open G tuning. The way I like to think about it is I've just basically shortened my banjo by 4 frets. I just play this as if the nut here was just where the capo is. So everything stays exactly the same. And actually, this can sometimes be a little easier to play because the frets are just a little closer together the further up the neck you go. So that can be a little useful as well if sometimes you have trouble reaching, which is actually a totally valid reason to change the tuning as well. Sometimes things are just a little easier to play if you come a little further up the neck. Other reasons you might change the tuning would be if you're playing with another instrument. So say you're playing, with a guitar player buddy or a fiddle player, they want to play in a different key. You don't have to learn all new chords, get on your phone, try to figure out how to play it in a different tuning or whatever. Just capo up or tune down so you can play in the same key as them. You'll do just fine. So if we can play out of every key in our standard open G tuning, why would we ever use alternate tunings like double C or sawmill or whatever? Even though it can seem difficult, people find these really scary, right? Alternate tunings, it's a whole other thing to learn. What do I do? Those tunings are actually there to make things easier for you, believe it or not. We like open strings. We like to make things easy for our left hand, and that is what alternate tunings are made for. So say I'm playing a song that's in the key of C, and I'm going to play that in my regular open G tuning. Well, a very common chord in the key of C is an F. And you play that by putting your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 4th string, your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, your index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and your pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. There you go. That's your F chord. That's pretty difficult to play. So what do? Well, instead of trying to play in the key of C in our open G tuning, we can do is switch to this sort of standard tuning for the key of C and play in double C tuning. So to do that, I just raise my 2nd string up to a C, so it's just a half step. And I'm lowering my 4th string from a D to a C. And now our F chord, it's 2 fingers. It's going to be my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string and my index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Much easier to play. We get those nice resonant open strings. I've given my left hand a lot more freedom to play around with and improvise rather than just holding that F chord. So again, we have a lot more freedom. It's a lot easier. Yes, you do have to memorize an extra chord, but were you really playing that F chord in G tuning anyway? Probably not. It's not the most convenient chord in the world. That's kind of the beauty of alternate tunings. We use them to make things easier for ourselves. So that is your quick crash course into capos, keys, tunings. See you next week. We're going to look at a double C classic.